flashing glasses, I think,
The
are my
flashing
personal
ones?
favorite. Yeah.
If you really want me to wear them, I can do that, but you're going to have to wait like 5 minutes while I go put in my contacts, and then I'll wear them.
Yeah, we're not going to do that. I just started it.
Okay.
All right, welcome back
Okay.
to the Pistol Show. My name is Ben Stecker. I'm here to answer your shooting questions. From Kansas City, Grandmaster Matt.
Hi, everybody.
From Portland, A-Class Gabe.
Not anymore.
Boom. You're going to correct me on that shit?
Yes.
Gabe, we should start the show off right. Do you up right and give you a little bit of a verbal BJ for making Master. Well, you made Master and Limited. That's pretty cool.
Yes. I'm really happy to finally reach M. Yeah.
But there's more to the story, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
tell the fine people why making Master is a big deal. It's kind of like making Grandmaster for regular people.
Well, I've had that thought, but I kind of try to stay away from it because when I make GM, my card's going to say GM on it, and right now it says M. So, I'm an M, not a GM. But I'm really happy to do it because, I originally I come from the defensive tactical training world, and as I became aware of the levels of technical skill in the competitive shooting world, I wanted to have that, and I thought of how awesome would it be to be able to produce legitimately equipped M or GM level of performance, but with my carry gear from concealment. And from the time I kind of conceptualized that, that's been my kind of underlying major goal, is to be able to produce M or GM level performance, properly equipped GM level performance or M level performance with my carry gear from concealment. And this is finally kind of one of the steps of realization of that goal.
Okay.
So I shoot my carry gear from concealment in limited because I carry junk carry, which is only legal in limited 10 and open. So I shoot limited, and I shoot it from concealment, and those things definitely make it harder, which is something I really try to avoid dwelling on because there's a standard of performance, and I want to meet that standard.
We should quantify this. You have to draw from concealment, which, like, in fairness, it doesn't slow you down a whole lot with your rig. A little bit. It takes a lot of practice to learn it, but you're not really slow.
I think what it does is, I agree, and thanks. I think what it does is it increases the disaster factor. Things can go very wrong with that shirt in the way.
From watching you shoot up close, I would agree. But it's way tougher because you're shooting a Glock 34, so you're scoring minor. Right? Yes. Yep. So I think that probably hurts a lot.
Yeah, minor is definitely the biggest aggravating factor, no question.
And then you reload from concealment, and classifiers tend to be reload heavy.
Yeah, yes. And that probably does hurt.
That hurts a lot.
That probably does. I bet I'm losing somewhere between a quarter and a half a second every reload probably.
Well, from watching you shoot, it doesn't look like after you pull your shirt up and draw. It doesn't look like your shirt always ends up in a consistent position relative to your magazines.
That's true.
Right? So that it's like you go to reload, and it's like, who knows where your shirt will be.
Right. So you kind of have to move the hand as if to clear the shirt, whether the shirt is there or not, because it may or may not be there.
So
that's true.
Kudos, man. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's impressive, actually.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Matt.
It's important to quantify for all the competitive shooter listeners exactly all the disadvantages you faced. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate it being noted, and that's cool. It's that's dwelling on those disadvantages is not something that I usually try to do. I don't have any problem thinking about it and talking about it when it's time, but I don't want to go around just saying woe is me. It's hard because I'm the one who picked up that baggage. Nobody's making me shoot the game a different way than just straight up the right way. This is just the way I like to do it. This is how I get my enjoyment from USPSA, is to be able to walk off the range from the match and know that I am walking around with exactly the same, at least potential, technical performance that I was able to lay down in that match.
Right. So you shoot the same gear you'd smoke fools with. That's what you're saying.
That's right.
Right on. All right. Good. So we're going to have us a discussion. Hopkins, tee it up, man. What are we talking about today?
We're talking about mental stuff. So Lanny Basham has this famous quote where he's like, What percentage of your shooting success is mental? I've asked this question to countless champions in my career as both an elite competitor and coach. Most say that the mental game is 90% or higher. What do you think?
Well, Hopkins, what do you think?
I think it has a pretty huge impact on stuff. Like just the way you think, how you're reacting to the day determines how you'll shoot, I believe. I believe there's a lot of stuff you can do to negate that too. Like there's tricks about rehearsal and visualization and stuff that can get you past that and put your mind in the right thing.
Okay, so would you agree or disagree that your shooting success is 90% mental?
No, I think it's crazy to say that.
It's crazy.
Well, here's the thing. You can't go out there and think a 4-second El Prez out, right? You have to physically be able to do the turn, the draw, the reload, all that within the 4 seconds. You can't just visually go in there or like during visualization and learn it. Your body has to do some part of that. I don't know if it's 90% or what. It's probably closer to 50-50.
Okay, Gabe, what's your sense of it?
Well, I'd kind of agree with that. I think that I don't know if I would say 90% because I mean it still is a big basis in physical skill, and if you don't have a physical skill trained up, you're not gonna pull it out just because you really want to. You've got to actually be able to do it. But then the mental part also enables you to summon that skill at that time in that place, and that's where I think it's highly variable by individual because I've met plenty of people who at least say that they are not particularly affected by stress. They go to a match and it's just, they shoot and that's it. It's not that different or weird or difficult for them beyond normal shooting. I'm not that way. It definitely, stress definitely affects me. The desire for some specific outcome definitely affects me, the desire to do well. And for me, what I have to retreat back into is the confidence based in that physical skill, knowing that I can do this, and I can only go do what I can do, so just do what you can do, and there isn't anything else to do.
Okay.
So I think it's confidence rooted in that physical ability in the first place. That's what gives me the mental strength, to whatever degree I have it.
I think what jumps out at me from that Basham quote is he's saying 90% of your shooting success is mental. And I guess I kind of wonder what he means by that. And what I'll say is, like, if you look at a USPSA match, 90% of your score is not made up of your mental ability, right? Is that fair to say, Matt?
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
So, like, if you were a complete retard and couldn't manage stress at all, like you were terrible at it, I don't think it would, it would hurt you for hit you for 90% of your potential match points.
No,
I think that's fair. But
yeah.
He's saying shooting success. So that to me, that could be the margin between winning and losing. You know what I mean? So we could be just talking about just on the edges, right. Where the last production nationals was within like 15 points, right?
Right.
And I think what he's saying is like 90% of the time, whether or not you can manage your stress level or manage yourself mentally, that'll decide which end of that you come out on. What do you say to that, Matt?
I can see that. I think a lot of people get hung up on this and try to use the programs that he teaches or whatever as a catch-all. He has great elements that work really good for our sport, but you can't apply the whole system to our sport because it's never repetitive. Compared to like an Olympic rifle shooter, he knows what he's going to do every single time. He knows he has to get in the prone position for 10 shots and then whatever, it doesn't matter.
Well, but for those who don't know,
it's a static program.
For those who don't know, could you describe a little bit of the Basham approach? Because you've talked with him, right?
Yeah, I actually sat down for a 2-day class with him.
So you've jaw jacked
like
the man.
Yeah, the man.
All right. Well,
it basically goes into a lot of self-talk beforehand, pre-programmed routines like breathing, doing the same thing every single time to get the same result. So, like, he's a rifle shooter. He talks about shooting 10s every time. So once you figure out the routine where you can shoot 10s, you just have to duplicate that over and over and over. And that's something that our sport you don't do. It's hardly ever that you shoot the same stage twice.
Right, okay. So I get what you're saying. So would he be more about identifying a routine that would help you produce the most alphas?
I think there is something to a routine. I think it eliminates some errors that can occur. So, like, if you clean your mags after every time they get dropped or whatever, you'll eliminate that chance. Just make that part of your after-stage routine. But, like, he actually even breaks it down even farther where there's, like, steps before the shot, which would work if you're doing one simple thing. Like, it would work in a stage where you're, like, you have key phrases that turn a switch in your brain to make you not think. It's pretty crazy. Yeah, I think a lot of that is not applicable to USPSA or stuff like that.
That stuff sounds very individual specific to me. I can definitely see some people's minds working that way, and I can see other people's minds not being very compatible with it. I know for myself throughout my life, occasionally, I mean, some of what I was hearing you describe, Matt, like a routine, a ritual, you go through these specific things. That to me reads as kind of a minor neurosis, and I'm not looking down on other people about that. I mean, that's something that sometimes I have those things, not so much now because I don't think that those are a positive thing. I mean, that's the kind of one of those things where it's like if I don't tug on the left edge of my collar before the stage, I think it's going to go bad, and then you have this nagging negative thought in your mind. I suppose if it helps you manage those things, then that's good, but I'd rather not think like that.
You don't have, like, when you go to the bathroom, you don't have, like, a pre-dump ritual?
As far as rituals before shooting matches or stages, I mean, only thing I would say is make sure my friggin' mags are all full and that they're all where they're supposed to be, and that is about the only thing that I actually do before starting a stage. There's nothing about, and think about front sight on the target. That's about it.
Do you visualize the stages at all?
No, definitely stage visualization. I don't mean not doing that. I just mean as far as things other than stage visualization. That's and that's a good point that you bring that up because that probably occupies most of my mind because that has in my time in shooting USPSA, that's something that I started out really bad at, and I'm sure I've gained a lot of ground on, and I'm sure I'm still not real great at it.
Gabe, as an aside, I'm just kind of curious. What would your thoughts be on this sort of visualization, mental management stuff when it comes to defensive face shooting type scenarios?
Actually, I think that there is some significant parallel to it. It's not the same thing, I don't think, but there are definitely, in defensive shooting, if you broke down defensive shooting into two main categories of reactive or proactive events, even if you included proactive in the sense of just having a couple of seconds of reading the space, the angles, and that specifically being what do you need to shoot, assuming it comes to a shooting decision, what do you need to shoot, what do you need to not shoot. Organize that space and those angles to the best advantage for yourself and all the people in the world who you need to not shoot, then execute. And that the execution of those physical actions could be made quite a bit slicker, I think, I really think so, by a mind that is very used to the high level of complexity and serial tasking that's involved in USPSA, and to be able to just solve that spatial equation, which is probably a relatively simple one, very, very quickly and cleanly.
We do it wrong in USPSA, though. They just color code everything for me, right?
Well,
shoot all the brown ones. Don't shoot the white one.
Right, and obviously that doesn't translate into threat ID and assessment as it applies in the world. But depending on your role, if we're so say we're talking about private citizens, to a very large degree, there's not as much ambiguity in private citizen defensive engagements as there are in law enforcement ones, where maybe you've been called to a scene, you don't know what the problem is, or you have some very, very general sense of it, and then you have to go there and sort it out. You don't want to shoot people, but you do need to take control of the situation and figure out what's going on and deal with it. But in private citizen defensive shootings, to a much larger degree, I think you're directly confronted with a clear and obvious deadly threat, and with some exception, I don't think there's nearly as much ambiguity in terms of, well, this guy you need to shoot this guy so you don't get killed, and all these other people you obviously don't need to shoot. So, right. Despite the fact that brown and white cardboard don't translate, I don't think that's I don't think that makes a lot of difference.
But those are just kind of part of the landscape in USPSA.
Do you ever use, Gabe, real quick? Do you ever use visualizations of like putting yourself in a certain situation?
I think that mental rehearsals and visualization are an incredibly important thing for defensive shooting, most especially for private citizens. And the reason for that is that, in my belief, experience is a great thing. I mean, of all the ingredients that might go into a really successful face shooter type person, experience is absolutely one of those things. But the reality is that if you're a private citizen and you are not a total and complete shit magnet, even if you are a total and complete shit magnet, maybe you get into like
it sounds very judgy what you're saying right now.
One shooting or a couple in your entire life, you're never going to amass experience in dealing with hostile people in rapidly evolving, ambiguous situations where you have this much time to make a decision and the consequences last forever. You're never going to amass experience of that, especially if you're good at seeing the problem coming and then going the other way. So mental rehearsals and visualization and simulation training, all those things become extremely important for private citizens, and that's also part of what's attracted me as a defensive private citizen shooter to USPSA, is that of all the things I can have, I'm not going to have experience. I'm not going to have real experience. I can have simulated experience, I can do mental rehearsal and visualization, and I can achieve a high level of technical skill. So those are the things that you do.
Well, those are the things that you do.
Yes.
Those are the things that maybe you should do, right?
Well, sure.
All right. Well, I'm sorry, guys. I derailed the shit out of this topic because I thought Gabe would be interesting. So
I'm real sorry.
I thought that was pretty interesting.
No, he was interesting. I was like, I feel like Gabe will be really interesting if I ask this question. And sure enough,
cool.
You didn't disappoint, Gabe.
Good.
This was good. Hopkins, do you have anything else to say about this?
I think it's probably highly individualized, like Gabe said. Like, something that works for me may not work for you, so you got to kind of figure it out on your own.
But you're going to stick with your initial reaction. Like, if somebody's like, it's 90% mental, you're like, no.
No, I think that's crazy to say. I think it's probably 100% mental and 100% physical, right? Because if you can't physically do the tasks.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, for me, I think USPSA shooters kind of, they separate sort of technical training from mental game a lot more than they really have to. Because a lot of time, I mean, just shooting with somebody else, see that they might have the technical skill to hit like to do stuff and to do certain things, and you need to bring like the desire to do it every time. You bring that into the training, and it changes how they use their technical skill. It helps them. So I mean, they're really closely related, and I don't feel like we need to separate them that much, if that makes sense. You're nodding your head yes, but I still feel a little retarded.
Why?
I don't know. That's how I feel. I'm insecure, man. All right.
So you think more people should combine the two, right?
Well, I think we don't necessarily need to separate skill from mental training. Or, you know what I mean? I feel like you're training yourself mentally every time you think about shooting, or you shoot, or you're dry firing, or like you're kind of you're shaping your mind and how you think about your shooting all the time. You know what I mean? So I don't think they're as separate as people want to make them.
Okay.
When you say like, I need to work on my mental game, it's kind of like, yeah, I mean, but you work on that. That's like part of your shooting, you know.
Yeah.
At the same time.
Do you think it would be a related point to note that? I mean, I feel like for myself, what has constituted the improvement that I've experienced over the last several years has largely been not my raw level of physical skill. I mean, I think I could probably lay down about as good a run a few years ago as I can now. But what has radically changed between then and now is my ability to actually execute at that level on demand and, for our purposes, let's say under match conditions.
Do I think that that's important?
Do you think that's related?
Yeah, I think it's related in a lot of ways where there's a big difference between, yes, I did this thing, like I shot El Prez in 4 seconds once,
right.
Versus that, like, then that gives you the knowledge, like, hey, I could do this. You know, then you train yourself some more and get better and get more consistent. And then you are able to perform at that level more and more and more frequently. And a lot of that is just the knowledge, like, hey, I know I can do this. You know?
So do you think that consistency is, maybe you could characterize that consistency increase as a mental improvement?
Yeah, part of it, for sure. Like consistency increases, like, as you train, and a lot of that is, like, mental. Yes, of course. The way you think about it.
Yeah. That's how it feels to me.
I don't disagree. All right, guys, we're going to move on to a question emailed to me. This is a sort of topic like I'm a little uncomfortable with because I obviously have a conflict with it, but at the same time, I don't know who this person took a class with. I don't know who they're talking about. So I'll go ahead with the question because I'm kind of in the dark as much as the listener is going to be. All right, here's the question. I enrolled in a 2-day class with the USPSA GM. On the first day, live fire did not start until 2 p.m. At the conclusion of the first day, I told the instructor that I felt this was more of a Pistol 1 class and that the pace was slow. He didn't seem to like that and said that he had a more advanced class, but I would have to be able to shoot a half-inch group at 10 yards to qualify. I can't shoot a half-inch group at 10 yards, kid. You and your distinguished guest shoot a half-inch group at 10 yards, and do you think that's a good metric for taking a more demanding class? Thanks. Hopkins, what do you think about this?
I think that's a pretty tough skill. I mean, even at 10 yards, a half-inch is like, you can't put 2 bullets side by side and stay within a half-inch, right?
Yeah, I was about to say that's.
So you have to like do hole and hole.
It will have to be, maybe it's center to center. Like, I don't know how it's measured.
Oh, it doesn't really matter, does it? Like, it's a really tough skill.
It would be a big fucking difference between everything has to be in a half-inch circle and like center of one hole to center of the other hole has to be a half-inch apart. You know?
I don't think that's his really question, though, is it?
I don't know.
I think he's.
I mean, even if you went with the looser of those two things you just described, I don't think he's getting a lot of people in that advanced class if he actually tests and enforces that standard. I mean, I got out a ruler here, and I'm looking at this half-inch, and this is, I mean, that's there's no way. I can't shoot a half-inch group at 10 yards. Not like on demand to qualify into the class.
I think I probably could over the course of a few hundred rounds, maybe.
Sure, give me a few chances, yes, but otherwise it's not going to be a half-inch group.
Yeah,
it's not. And I would also, you know, at the home range where I train and teach, we have a bunch of class standards that you have to meet before you can move on to the next class. And this is a subject that I've kind of pondered a lot because, you know, if I go out to do a class somewhere else, that's not really a thing that's going to be very enforceable. I mean, how is he actually, as a practical matter, how is he going to actually require that people shoot that standard before they can enroll in his advanced class? Is he going to make them send him a video? That can be faked. Is he just going to ask them? People will qualify themselves into whatever they feel like. Is he going to require that they go to the basic class first and he personally witnesses it? if he wants to do that, he could probably forget about actually having that advanced class.
Or he could have them test in. Like they show up for the first day of advanced class, and it's like, you can't do it. Like, get the fuck out of here.
I'm sure that's going to work real well. Either I'm not giving your money back because you couldn't shoot the half-inch, or give him the money back, and then he ends up making, $300 after spending, $1,500 to go across the country and have this class. Yeah, right.
My strong suspicion is that this is not a guy that travels and does a lot of classes. That would be...
I don't have the first clue who they're talking about.
Neither do I. But just based on that, probably not traveling to do a lot of classes. What I would guess.
Well, that's what I meant with my comment about the range that I normally teach at. Is the only reason that we are even able to have those type of gateway standards is because we are a local school, and so people who train with us are local to us, so they can come in and work on meeting those standards. But if it were a traveling operation, it would not fly at all.
Well, there's 3 points in here I think are worthy of addressing. The first one is I like the terminology is sort of interesting to me, where this guy says, this feels like a Pistol 1 class to me. And sitting here, I was like, I don't know what the fuck a Pistol 1 class is. Like, I don't know what that means. Like, I don't know what that person's expectations are when they're taking the class. So that's something that I've dealt with as well, and that's why I think 6 months ago or something I renamed my advanced class the Skills and Drills class, because I wanted people to understand what they were getting and actually read the description of the class before they signed up for it. So that's one thing that kind of jumps out at me reading this. The other thing is, I think a half-inch group is a pretty stout requirement. I know I can do that, but I wouldn't put money on doing it 10 shots in a half-inch at 10 yards. I wouldn't
first try.
Yeah, I wouldn't put money on doing that the first time. And to answer the guy's question, do I think that's a good metric for taking a more demanding class? Yeah, I do. If it's a bullseye class, that would make a lot of sense. I wouldn't make that the one and only standard for anything USPSA related. Of course not. But maybe there's more to it. Maybe there's more to that story. Maybe there's other metrics or something. All right, Hopkins, you got anything else to say about this?
No, I think
you pretty well smashed it.
Yeah.
Boo! You think it's crazy?
Yeah, it's crazy.
I thought it was kind of interesting that the person writing the email noted that they didn't actually shoot until 2 p.m. on the first day.
Maybe class
I'd like to know
lunch.
what happened. Yeah, maybe. I mean, really, what are you gonna just talk about and not actually shoot in a USPSA-oriented class? What are you gonna actually just talk about and not shoot until 2 o'clock on the first day of training?
Well, maybe the class is geared towards people who potentially have not shot USPSA. So there might be a whole lot of safety bullshit to talk about.
It could be a standard class. Also, it didn't say it's a USPSA specific class.
Oh, it didn't? Okay.
No, it said from a USPSA Grandmaster. It didn't say what kind of class it was.
Okay.
So, it could be pretty basic, where they spend 2 hours going over the safety rules, and then another couple hours. Oh, here's a front sight. Here's a trigger. I actually sat through one of those classes once.
Yeah, it could be. It could be.
Well,
it was, but really, really basic stuff.
But at the time, that was fine for
until
you.
after lunch. So.
Okay.
It was good for me. I needed it at the time, but I would eat my gun right now if I could do that.
Oh, man. Damn. That's some hardcore shit, Hopkins. I dig it. All right, Gabe, thank you so much for coming on. If you want to get in
thanks
touch
for having
with
me.
Gabe, he's Mr. White on Pistol Forum. So go find him there, and he's you've $3-4 grand a day for private lessons, something like that now?
Sure, yeah. I'll do a private lesson for that.
Hopkins is at hopkinsshooting.com.
Yep.
You're $5 or $6 grand a day for private lessons?
No, that's too little. It's more
Okay.
than that.
And if you want a private lesson with me, I'm at benstugger.com, and I'm way cheaper than these other hacks. So that's pretty tight. All right, thank you guys.